Welcome, my friends! The quadratic formula is a formula that allows us to solve any equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Another way to think about the quadratic formula is as a method to find the x-intercepts, or zeros, of a quadratic equation. The quadratic formula should be your last resort, and you should try applying other factoring methods first before applying the quadratic formula. Here comes the quadratic formula. It's coming, I promise. Here it comes. Here it comes. It's coming. It's approaching. It's almost here. It's almost here. Here it is. Here is the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. This formula is worth committing to your memory because you're going to use it quite a bit throughout your mathematics career. If you'd like a proof of why the quadratic formula works, just do a YouTube search and you will find plenty of videos. The proof involves completing the square, but you don't necessarily need to understand the proof in order to use the formula. Let's take a look at some problems applying the quadratic formula. Here's an example. We have 2x squared plus 8x plus 1. Oh, here comes the quadratic formula again. Always late. Goodness. Anyways, generally you would try to factor this, which would involve trying to find two numbers that add to 8 and multiply to 2. But I'm telling you now, this does not factor, so we are stuck with the quadratic formula. What I like to do when using the quadratic formula is write my a, b, and c values on the side to try to keep things organized. Our a value is 2, our b value is 8, and our c value is 1. Now let's plug into the formula. We have a fraction where the top begins with negative b, which is negative 8. And then we should add and subtract the square root of b squared, which is 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c, which is 4 times 2 times 1. Then we must divide the entire fraction by 2 times a, which is just 2 times 2. Now we can simplify. We have negative 8, and we must add and subtract 8 squared, which is 64, minus 4 times 2 times 1, which is negative 8. This should all be divided by 2 times 2, which is just 4. Now let's simplify the inside of the square root. 64 minus 8 is equal to 56. 56 can be rewritten as 14 times 4. We know that the square root of 4 is 2, so we have negative 8 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 14 all over 4. Now, this answer is correct, but oftentimes you might want to simplify even further if the fraction could be reduced. Here, both negative 8 and 2 divide nicely into 4, so we can reduce this to negative 4 plus or minus 1 times the square root of 14 divided by 2, as negative 8 over 4 is the same as negative 4 over 2, and 2 over 4 is the same as 1 over 2. That means our final answer is that x is equal to negative 4 plus the square root of 14 over 2, and x is equal to negative 4 minus the square root of 14 over 2. Okay, let's try another problem. We have 5x squared minus 4x minus 4 is equal to 0. You can try if you want, but this will not factor. We are stuck with the quadratic formula. A is equal to 5, b is equal to negative 4, and c is also equal to negative 4. Plugging into the formula, we have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 4, all divided by 2 times 5. Pause the video if you need to verify where all the numbers are coming from in the formula. Simplifying, negative 4 is just positive 4. Negative 4 squared is 16, and negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, times negative 4 is positive 80. 2 times 5 is 10 in the denominator. Inside the square root, we have 16 plus 80, which is equal to 96. 96 is the same thing as 16 times 6, so we can rewrite the square root like this. The square root of 16 is 4, so we have 4 plus 4 square root 6 divided by 10. Just like the last problem, our fraction can be reduced to 2 plus or minus 2 square root 6 divided by 5, as 4 out of 10 is equal to 2 over 5. Our final answer is x is equal to 2 plus 2 square root 6 divided by 5, and x is equal to 2 minus 2 square root 6 divided by 5. These are the exact answers, but sometimes you might want to find a decimal approximation. To do this, you will need to go to the calculator and type in your answers. Since we have a fraction with multiple terms on the numerator, you will want to use parentheses. So type, open parentheses, 2 plus 2 square root of 6, close parentheses, divided by 5. Press enter, and we get about 1.38 for our first answer. Then type in parentheses 2 minus 2 square root 6, close parentheses, divided by 5. And then press enter. We get about negative 0.58. So the decimal approximations for our two answers are 1.38 and negative 0.58 if we round to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's try one more problem. We have 6x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. A is equal to 6, B is equal to 3, and C is equal to 2. Plugging into the formula, we have x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 6 times 2 all over 2 times 6. 3 squared is 9, and negative 4 times 6 is 24, times 2 is negative 48. 2 times 6 is 12. Combining the constants under the square root, we have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 39 over 12. Uh-oh! Looks like we have a negative value underneath the square root. That indicates that there is no solution to this quadratic equation. There is no value for x that makes the equation true. We can still continue, but we will need to work with imaginary numbers. We can rewrite this as negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 times 39 all over 12. We know that the square root of negative 1 is the imaginary number I. So we can rewrite this as negative 3 plus or minus I times the square root of 39 over 12. Splitting this into the positive and negative components, our answers are negative 3 plus I square root 39 over 12 and negative 3 minus I square root 39 over 12. Alright my friends, that completes our video relating to the quadratic formula.